Today we're going to be checking out the new Lion Summit from Lion Energy. It's very, very cool, and I'm going to be putting it through all kinds of cool tests, so let's get right into it. Hi everybody, my name is Jim with Full Moon Adventure Club, and today we're going to be reviewing the Lion Summit by Lion Energy, which is rotating majestically behind me there in the background. We're going to go over all the tech specs and the unboxing and then put it through a bunch of really cool tests to give you a good idea of whether or not this is something that's right for you. If it is, links down below in the description. Get you 15% off anything on their website with my affiliate link if you're interested. We have a lot to cover, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so here's a shot of it. I mean, the construction itself feels very, very sturdy. The 4 rubber bumpers on each side give it a lot of protection from being thrown around in the truck. Here's a good shot of it next to its little brother, the Safari LT, which I also have, and I've been beating up for years. Absolutely love that thing. But we'll get into that a little bit later and maybe talk about some of the differences and upgrades that they've made to the Summit. But for now, let's jump right into the features of the Summit. So you can power a lot of things. It does have a 530 watt continuous pure sine wave inverter, 665 watt hours of battery life, and it weighs about 18.5 pounds. Very, very, very portable. And also the display is absolutely great. It shows incoming wattage from solar or charging, shows outgoing, it shows the power remaining in the battery. And you can also use the Bluetooth app to see absolutely everything that's being powered by this thing. 3,500 life cycles is huge using that new lithium iron phosphate chemistry, which is amazing. It has 2 AC outlets, 2 USB outlets, 2 USB-C outlets, and it has a 12 volt, 10 amp lighter socket right there. And you just to turn it on, you hit the power, you turn on the inverter, and you're off to the races with whatever you want to plug in. And so that alone is very, very impressive. 530 watts out for any AC things that you want to use. 2 PDs out that's 60 watts a piece. And that you can charge a laptop with that or anything you want. You can use a lighter socket for car stuff like a tire inflator, like you just saw there. And it's just a lot of ways that you can charge this thing. So it'll take 150 watts in of power, and you can also use solar with it. You can also plug it into your car cigarette lighter and charge it that way, or you can do it with the solar panels, and it will handle up to 150 watts, as I said, which is very, very cool for camping or anything else that you could possibly think of. So let's get into some testing with this guy and see what we can actually power based off my own experiences and my own tests. Let's really put it through the ringer and see what this little guy can do. All right, so seeing what comes in the box here, pretty simple. We do have our manual right there. You can have your car charger and both pieces for your quick wall charger to power the unit itself. So other than that, it's pretty much just packaging in the box. Once you remove all that protective packaging, you're going to have the Summit itself. So let's get right into plugging this guy in, getting it charged up, and starting some testing. Now, as I plug in the wall charger, I love this because it is a 150 watt quick wall charger, and you can see here when I plug it in, we do get up to 140 watts of charging. So I really appreciate that they put a quick wall charger right in the box with the unit. That's awesome. It also has a Bluetooth app, so once you download that, you enable Bluetooth, you select the Summit from devices, it's going to open this screen up. This is what this looks like. And it's going to show you incoming solar or charging wattage, outgoing total wattage. It tells you the battery percentage, how many hours you can run whatever you're powering. And here, if you'll notice, it shows you what's coming out of the AC ports, the USB ports, the PD ports, and even the 12 volt lighter socket ports, which is just incredibly cool. So you can see all those kicking on, and whenever I plug individual things in, it shows you the individual power being used at those spots, which is super cool. The app can be a little buggy, and I've had to reinstall it twice, but other than that, I think it's a really, really cool feature to have and monitor from a great distance away. However, it does not have the ability to turn the unit on or off, which I wish they would add in the future. Now I'm going to put that 12 volt socket to the test and see if we can actually get 10 amps out of it for an extended period of time. You can see we're at 12.1 volts here. This is an unregulated plug, so it will drop in voltage as the battery gets lower or you push more wattage through it. Here you can see I push it all the way up to just about 9.8 amps, and I let that run, and it did just fine for hours all the way through its cycle. So it's definitely rated for the 10 amps, really solid. And now we're going to listen to the fan to see how quiet it is, because that's a really cool feature. And that thing is just whisper quiet. I love that. It's so awesome. Now to really push this 12 volt socket, I wanted to run something that takes too much power, that's overrated, to make sure it's not going to burn out, and it does have safety protocols in there. So I used a coffee bean grinder using the AC outlet, no problems there. And then plugged in this coffee maker, which takes about 140 watts, somewhere in there. It's about a 14, 15 amp coffee maker trying to run off a 10 amp port. So you can see here after a few minutes, it turned off. It tries to come back on, but it can't quite manage it. So it does have a safety protocol. It did protect the circuit, which is great. And then just to finish the coffee, what I did is I plugged in a little 12 volt to AC, basically an AC to DC converter right there that's rated for 25 amps or 300 watts, and plugged that into the AC side. And of course, it was able to make the coffee just fine because it's only about 150 watts and it can handle 550. But running a coffee maker off the one cigarette lighter port, not going to work on a 10 amp, might work on a 15, but it did protect itself and it still works fine. So that's what that experiment was all about. Now let's hook up a ton of different electronics and see how long it takes for it to charge all this stuff and what the battery percentage is when it's remaining. So all these things are going to get plugged in. It's also going to run those 3 lights up top, those LED lights. And I will go over all the stuff that's in this picture and we'll check it out. Okay, real fast, I'll run down all the things that you're looking at here and the way I'm able to plug in this many different devices by using a big surge protector or power strip that's plugged into the Summit. And you can do this too, so you can plug in more things, gives you more outlets to use if you need it to plug in lots of small stuff. So starting from left to right, we do have 4 AAA batteries that you would use in a headlamp, an 8-inch tablet right there, our Garmin GPS, a MiFi jetpack for Wi-Fi on the go. We also have our Nintendo Switch playing Mario Kart, 2 walkie-talkies, a smartwatch, a GoPro Fusion that is recording, an LED spotlight that's completely dead, a Ryobi drill battery charger so you have power tools while you're doing whatever. We have a Galaxy S8 phone down there charging as well, and an 18650 battery in the charger that I would use to power a little LED flashlight, and also this Bluetooth speaker right here that has the blue light on it, and it is pumping the jams. That's why I'm doing this voiceover. It is playing music, and also a 12 volt fan that is plugged into the lighter socket right there. So we're going to let all of these things run. I tried to get everything down to close to 0% on their battery, so it's hopefully going to have to charge all these things up in the beginning, and we're going to start that time lapse. Let's get to it. So after I get all this stuff turned on and everything is charging, I wanted to see about how many watts we had coming out. So as I come over here to the display and I look in on that, you can see we're pulling out about 120 watts. This will put out 530 watts, but that's how much it's taking to charge and run all of this stuff right now, just to give you an idea of how much all this takes energy-wise. This is a ridiculous amount of stuff to actually have camping, but I thought it was a pretty cool experiment. And I tried to keep all the displays on, but they all keep turning off after about 15 minutes of inactivity or whatever for power saving. But how cool is that? And it ran everything, and then everything started to finally get their batteries charged, and so the energy required was dropping. We made it about an hour and 45 minutes. But if that's not glamping, I don't know what is. So I shut it down there. So now that everything's charged, we're pulling out 48 watts. The battery's still at 80%, which means we can only use 20%. We could basically charge all this stuff a total of 5 times on a full charge. So that's complete success for that test. We're going to shut everything down and move on to my refrigerator. Okay, so now we're going to do the real big test. This is my LG double door refrigerator, and I have an extension cord running down here so I can power it in case of power outages. So we're going to go ahead and fire that up. And as you saw, it did start off at about 380 watts when we first turned it on, but the refrigerator is already cold. So you can see here in the time lapse, it usually hovers between around 80 watts, and then it goes down to about 7 watts or 5 watts. Then it goes up to 80 watts, and that's just the normal cycle of the compressor. And so it goes all night. It runs through, we used the refrigerator. We opened the door kind of, between 6 and 10, and then we went to bed. And then it just stayed all night and ran for a total of about 10 and a half hours, which is really impressive. We ended up with 10 hours, 55 minutes, about 11 hours, which is super duper impressive. I think that's very cool. All right, guys, for this experiment, I just want to make sure we can charge it up with solar while we're running something big like this cooler. So I have a 100 watt panel hooked up. It'll take 150 watts, but I have a 100 watt panel hooked up, and we have our Bluetooth there so I can show you some screenshots of where we start and where we end up. We have the 60 watt cooler we're going to run, and I do have a thermometer out here. It's 86 degrees on the table. It's 86 degrees inside the cooler. I know that because I put a little remote thermometer inside the cooler. and it's 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I'm also going to put this tea inside so it has something bulky that it has to cool down, and the cooler has to work for it, and we get a fair shake out of this experiment. So once we start this up, you can see we're starting at 45% on the battery. We're getting 91 watts of solar in, 61 watts going out to the cooler. And under these conditions, it would take 4 hours and 6 minutes to completely charge up this cooler. So that's very, very cool. You can see the cooler is already starting to cool things down. It's down to 66 degrees. And the Summit during this process in direct sun stayed completely cool. The fan was running, but it was whisper quiet. So it did a really, really good job. And basically, as the day goes on here, you can see that I think it's 2 o'clock now, so it's only been running an hour. This is about 2:40, so it's down to 62 degrees, 89 degrees outside, 62 in the cooler. It's 2:40 p.m. It's doing great. And then pretty much I lost my sun after that. We have a lot of trees up here, and so it's going to run without solar for another couple hours. You can see it's 49 degrees inside the cooler, 64 on the table, and the time is 4:44 p.m. and we're going to check the internal temperature of the cooler. Perfect, 47 degrees, right on. And if we look at the time that we managed, or the power consumption, we're right back to 45% capacity after running for an additional 2 hours without any solar coming into it. So really good test, total proof of concept. Yes, you can charge it with the solar while you run whatever you want. So that's really, really cool. Perfect. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed that. Now, as far as pros and cons go with this particular unit, in my opinion, I wouldn't mind seeing a regulated DC socket on there that maintains, like a voltage of like 13.6 volts, even as the battery drops. But that's rarely seen in smaller units, I would say. Usually that's for the bigger guys. Also the Bluetooth app, I think, is a really cool thing, and I think they just that's new on their market for their different devices. I would like to see it be a little quicker to connect, and also after I hadn't used it in a couple weeks and I tried to reconnect, it had a problem with that, and so I had to reinstall the app, and then it worked just fine. So I'm sure they're working on that, and that's going to get better. Not a deal breaker by any sense of the word. Now let's talk about some of the differences between my favorite. I'd say it's probably my most grabbed small portable solar generator storage devices is the Safari LT. Now I've had this thing for, I don't know, I think like 3 years, 4 years, something like that, and I've beat it up so bad. I've used it camping, I've used it at parties, I've thrown it in the back of the truck, I used it RVing, I've used it for 1,000 different things, and it's just taken all the abuse I can throw at it, and it's still working great. So as far as the build quality from Lion Energy, so far that's working awesome, and I love that little guy. Now it weighs 11 pounds, and the Summit weighs 18 pounds, and so there is that 7-pound increase, and it's a bigger unit. It's got more wattage output, you know what I mean? 530 watts, pure sine wave, which is awesome because you can use it on sensitive electronics. Now, one of the biggest upgrades to this unit, I would have to say, is definitely the battery chemistry, which is a lithium iron phosphate. That's huge. We all want that. It's just a great battery to have inside. It's heavier, but it's completely stable, and it has so many more life cycles. You can really get a lot of use out of these guys. For example, the Safari LT, the old guy that I have, uses an NMC. Yes, battery chemistry lithium. You can get about 1,000 life cycles out of that. If you do the math, let's say you used it all the way, if you drained it completely and charged it all the way up in 1 day, that's a cycle, okay? If you just divide 1,000 by 365, you'd get about 2.7 years of use using it every day, which lasts a really long time. I mean, most of us aren't going to use that every day. We're going to use it on weekends, so that's going to last you a really long time. But lithium iron phosphate batteries that are in the Summit have 3,500 cycles, which is crazy. And if you divide 3,500 by 365 days a year, assuming you discharge it and charge it once per day, that's going to last you 9.5 years. And after that amount of time, they're probably still going to be at about 70 or 80% of their capacity, which is insane. So that's really, really cool. It's going to last you a very, very, very long time. So that's a massive upgrade, is to have those batteries, so you can really just get a lot of use out of this guy. The extra size and weight isn't a big deal for me. I'm still going to grab this guy if I'm going out the door for something quick. Say your cigarette lighter in your car is broken, you need something to charge your phones on a road trip. Everybody can plug into this guy. Camping, you can have fans, you can have anything you want. CPAP machines. In a power outage situation, it's going to run those absolutely fine, completely safe for sensitive electronics. It's going to be an all-night thing where you're going to be in really good shape. Lion Energy does sell 100 watt panels and 50 watt panels, so you can get a full 150 watts out of this guy and really like run the cooler and charge all your stuff and just be good to go and charging during the day while running that stuff. When I did the experiment with all the different devices plugged in, that only took it down to 80%. So I could charge all of those things, which I did try and get them all down to 0 with their batteries as close as I could. It charged them all up in about 2 hours. It's at 80%. You could do that 5 times and charge all those devices 5 times. And if you have solar, you're just good to go. And the fact that it ran my fridge made me a little nervous because it's an expensive fridge and I use it for a lot of experiments and I really hope it continues to take it. But pure sine wave inverter, it's a new fridge, so it didn't even have like a huge amount of power. As you saw, we used it for a couple hours at night. We were opening the doors, then we went to bed, and it was around 80 watts, and then I go to 0 and then 80 watts, and that's kind of where the compressor maintains things. But it can go as high as like 400 like when we first started it. But let's face it, in a power outage, you're going to try and keep that door closed as much as you can anyway. But 10.5 hours, that's awesome. That little thing can run my fridge for 10.5 hours in a power outage. I think that's incredibly cool. So I think that about wraps it up. I hope that gives you a good indication of whether or not this is something you'd be interested in. If it is, 15% off absolutely anything on the Lion Energy website, which is pretty big savings. If you use my affiliate link down below, it'll take you over there and you can save 15% on absolutely anything you get, or use the code word adventure on checkout, and that'll save you a little bit of cash. So I hope that's helpful. Hope this video helped you figure out whether or not this was something that you'd be interested in. And if it helped you out, please like, share, subscribe, and share it. That really helps me out. And that about covers it. Until the next video, thank you so much for watching. My name is Jim with Full Moon Adventure Club. Happy camping.